It's finally here, the birthday Beer Wagon battle. Don't go away. Hello everyone and welcome to Fat Guy Productions. I am Paul, coming to you as always from beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada. Today, to celebrate my 60th birthday, I am hosting this awesome event, the Birthday Beer Wagon Battle. This is a Tom Daniel inspired build based on his iconic design, the Beer Wagon. Now here is how this event will work. We will watch this video together with a live chat. And when I say go, anytime you see or hear the word beer, you will have to take a sip of your beer, or whatever you're drinking, and you'll have to post the word beer in the chat. By doing this, you will have a chance to win some amazing prizes. Only those watching live can win. I'm sorry, folks, but the whole concept here is for us to have fun watching this live together. Tomorrow, I will post a video announcing the winners of the giveaway, which will include 2 Tom Daniel autographed prints of the Beer Wagon and other fun stuff. So the game is on now. When you hear the word beer, take a drink and post the word beer in the chat. Seeing the word beer in the chat doesn't count. So, with no further ado, let's get to my birthday Beer Wagon battle. So, for my Tom Daniel tribute build of the famous Beer Wagon, I've developed a plan that incorporates some of my favorite things. First off, more beer. To accomplish that, I will use not one, but 2 of these Hotwheels Butterfinger haulers. To haul more beer, you need a bigger truck. I picked this diecast to work with because I love COEs, and this casting has great wheels with yellow stripes, which means I won't need to do a wheel swap. So, I'm bringing Tom Daniel, more beer, a COE, and my truck will be hauling German beer, another favorite. I'll start by taking the castings apart. There are 2 posts, a metal one in the front and a plastic one that holds the bed on. I plan to make my own wooden bed, so the beds that came with the casting will go into my spare parts bin. The casting is comprised of the body, the base, the interior, the glass, and the bed. Of course, this is times 2. And now for an epic moment in Fat Guy Productions history. A double drop of the bodies into the warm liquid goo. I thought about dropping them into beer, but if that had stripped the paint off the cars, I don't think I really wanted to know about it, so we'll just stick with the goo. So, the plan is to add the rear wheels of one truck to the other truck. I can see my beer wagon in my head, but I don't really have a plan on how to get there. I'm really just sort of winging it here. Once I have some sort of idea as where I need to cut, I'll go ahead and chop the back off of one casting with my jeweler saw, just in front of the rear wheels. Now I need to just try and figure out where to make the second cut. So now I sort of have an idea in my head on where to make the second cut. Here I'm going to cut off the back behind the wheels. I have to be careful here so I get the spacing between the dual wheels right. Too close, it'll look weird. Too far, it'll look weird. The cuts couldn't have landed in a better place, as underneath the driveline is really matching up perfectly, and it looks almost as if it was made this way at the factory. Not bad for a beer-swilling fool, huh? After a quick test fit, like a glove, I'll use a few dabs of Loctite CA glue, and I'll put the two halves together. This is just temporary gluing to allow me to get the halves of the base together and aligned. With the CA glue now dry, I can go ahead and apply a permanent and much stronger layer of JB weld. But I don't want to mess up the bottom, so I'm only going to apply the JB weld on the inside. I'll make this a nice thick layer, which will give it some added strength. And I'll spread it wider than need be just to give the JB weld more surface to cling to. Smooshy, 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 slide the JB weld all over the place, work it in, spread it around. That's nice. There we go. And now we can just go ahead and, when we're done, let it sit and dry. So the JB weld really takes about 24 hours to dry. Before moving on, I notice I've run into a small snag. While working on the base, I realized I won't have a rear post for reassembly of my beer wagon. That post was part of the plastic bed, which I'm not going to use. So I'm going to have to figure something out here. The bodies have been in the goo now for several hours, so I can go ahead and pluck them out, run them to the sink. I'll give them a good washing and brushing, and we can figure out what we have to do to make the bed longer. You know how I do. Due to the body work I'll be doing, this casting will be primed. Still, I run through my routine on the body here. I dry it up. I'm going to brush it with the brass bristle brush, even though the body doesn't really need it. I'm also making a mistake here that I haven't made in a while. Have you caught it yet? I haven't drilled the posts yet. My thinking was, why drill until I get it matched up? That way, in case I mess up, I'm not wasting that work. This is a bad idea. I'm going to end up forgetting about it until it's too late. And I guess this is why I normally try to keep up my routines, so I don't have issues like this. So I'm cutting the rear off of what will be the front of my beer wagon. This is the easier cut, and the casting has a nice edge I can use for a guide. It sits great on the base with the back cut off, and now with my fingers crossed, I can move on to figuring out where to cut the rear of the truck. So again, after mulling things out in my head, I just eyeball the cut, making sure that if I'm going to screw this up, I'll make it longer than it needs to be. I can always grind it and file it back. But if I cut it short, I'll be ordering a new casting. So, cut, and perhaps say a little prayer. So, with the front of the body sitting on the base, I'll put the back on and whammy! Grand slammy! This couldn't have worked out better if I had actually known what I was doing. In the end, it just needed a tiny bit of file work to clean things up, but it really came together great. You know, there is a point in every build where you finally realize that what you're doing is going to work, and this is that moment in my beer wagon build. Hell yes. Looking at my cutoffs here, do I see a future project? Huh? You never know. So, once I've finished cleaning up the cut edges, I'll use the same technique to put the parts together. First, applying a couple dabs of CA. I'll get the front and the back of the truck aligned, and then just let it dry. Now I strengthen everything up with JB Weld, and I have to be judicious with the JB here as I don't want to have it interfere with the reassembly. Besides, I don't need a ton of strength here. Once the bed is attached to the body and it's on the frame, it's going to be plenty strong. So here it is, all dry, and the test foot looks great in my humble opinion. I'll give the wheel wells a very light pass with a grinding wheel to clean up the excess JB weld and to just sort of smooth it all out. Now I can go ahead and start to fill and sand the small gap at the joint by using my beloved Vallejo plastic putty. I judiciously apply it, smooth it in with the tip of my finger, and once dry, I'll sand it all down. So the big gaping hole in the bed doesn't need to be there. I'm going to fill it with some sheet styrene, mainly to add some strength to the joints. Measure twice, cut once, and a small bit of trimming. I just need it to fit well. It doesn't need to look perfect. And once it fits nicely, I'll glue it in with my Loctite CA. By the way, did I say beer? Things are really clicking right now. I'm really feeling it. So we've got this filled in. Why don't we take it over to the paint booth and we'll throw a little primer on this and see what it looks like. You would be so surprised what Tamiya Fine Primer will expose. So here I am over at the paint booth putting down a coat just so I can see where I'm at. While the primer dries, I'll busy myself by visiting a website called Yegi to find a 3D model of a barrel. I found one I liked, and I made a bunch of copies. I scaled it, and then I printed it on my resin 3D printer. So, now I have a bunch of beer barrels. So I washed all my barrels and cleaned them all up. Then I go ahead and cure them under a UV light, and now I'll just set them aside. The primer is dry and I can now easily identify areas of the joint that still need my attention. I hit those areas up with a bit of scraping and some fine grit sanding sponges, and then I'll prime the whole thing again. I have here some small strips of basswood that roughly would be the shape of a 2x4 in this scale. I'll be using this to make the flatbed for my beer wagon. I'll simply start by eyeballing how long I need the boards to be, and then I'll start cutting as many as I think I need. Under my cutting mat is a metal plate. The white blocks are big magnets. Using this and a couple of 1-2-3 blocks, I can easily keep everything tight and make sure that as I start to glue up the deck, everything stays square and tight. I use a toothpick and I apply a thin layer of wood glue and I start gluing it all up. I just hope I don't end up gluing this thing down to my mat. If you don't have some 1-2-3 blocks on your workbench, you're missing out on something fantastic, and I suggest you get some. There will be a link in the section below, and they're very affordable. At least get the pair. 4 would be even better. In fact, I'm going to order more. So my flatbed was indeed stuck a bit, but it popped right off by flexing the mat. Now I can take a quick look to see how it looks on the truck. I'm pretty happy with it, but it does need some edge trim. So, after sanding the sides and the rear edges, I'll glue on some trim, let it dry, then I'll sand it all smooth. As you can see, the 1, 2, 3 blocks are great, super cheap, and always find a way to be useful. With the deck ready, I'm going to go ahead and finish it with some poly shades. This will seal it and give it color that will complement the paint job I have in mind. Once done, I'll just set it aside to dry. I am finally ready for some paint. I'm going to start with Auto Air Colors Gold Plating. The idea is for this base coat to give the final paint job some sparkle, like you might see in a delicious stein of beer. It only takes a couple of coats to get a uniform gold sparkle tone, so once I'm happy, I can let this dry before applying the next paint layer. Now I'll mix up some Createx Candy 2.0 Lemon Yellow with some Balancing Clear, and then I'll start laying it down. For this layer, I'll follow my normal painting methods with a tack coat, then medium coats, and then wet coats. I'm going to apply the yellow just using my feelings until I get a shade that makes me happy. I need to make sure that at the end here I get a nice smooth finish so that the decals I plan to use will lay down nicely. I'm always trying to keep moving, so while the paint dries, I can start painting beer barrels. I have a lot of them. It's going to take some work, especially because each barrel is going to take a couple passes. I'm just using a Tamiya flat brown here. While the barrels dry, I search out some Hofbrau logos. I'll scale them, print them on my HP laser printer with my Ghost White toner, and I'm in business. Have I mentioned how much I love that HP laser printer and my Ghost White toner? Because if I haven't, let me tell you, I love that thing. After a close examination of the decals, I cut them out and can now apply them to the thoroughly dry body. I briefly soak the decals in water, and then I slide them into place. I find a toothpick is best for moving decals around to their final position. A little setting solution will lock them down once you have them in place. It is vital to let these dry as long as you let the paint dry. A damp decal will kill your clear coat layer, so don't rush it. You're this far in, don't screw it up now. Slow down, take your time, and have a beer. With my decals, or do you say decals? With them dry, I can seal everything up and give it a spectacular shine with my beloved urethane clear coat I get from Brightvision. This stuff is still amazing to me. It goes on so easily and looks phenomenal. Like paint, I put it down with the tack coat, medium coats, and then wet coats. Lighting is vital here. You can't get the coat right if you can't see it. So now I can fill my time by letting that all dry and doing some detail painting. I'm going to paint the interior a flat tan using Tamiya paints, and then later I'll go back and give it some details with some brown and some Molotow chrome. On the base, I'll take black panel liner and add some detail to the front grille. This stuff is magical and can really bring your stuff to life. So the clear coat is dry and I realize I haven't drilled my post out. So I'm going to take care of that now. A dab of oil, then I'll drill and tap the post. I hope this isn't the start of a bad habit returning. Damn, I really need a beer. The post is tapped and the interior is dry, so I can do some detail painting now. After detailing the interior, I'll dry brush a couple of the barrels to give it a little bit of variety instead of all of the barrels just being the exact same brown. And I'm actually going to be using a couple different kinds of barrels also to add a little visual interest. Dry brushing is exactly as it sounds. You put a little bit of paint on your brush, remove most of it on a paper towel, and then just kind of rub the brush over the surface of the piece, transferring the smallest amounts of paint just to bring out some of the highlights. So, I can now go ahead and put the majority of the beer wagon together. In goes the glass, then the detailed interior, and then before putting the base on, I'm going to put a bit of CA on the middle support post just to help lock this down as I don't have a rear screw. Now I can drop the base on. I'll drop it on, screw it down, and I'm thrilled to find out that it is wonderfully solid. As long as I still have the beer wagon out, I might as well also glue the bed on now, too. Several dots of CA, and then I'll just carefully and quickly position the bed down and let it dry. I used a black pin wash on the beer barrels to give them some depth, and now I'll start gluing them onto the bed. I'll mix in the dry brushed barrels and some of the different ones I have and give it a design and make it feel a little more random. Now I'll hit up the trim on the Beer Wagon with the Mulletau Chrome. I'll let it dry, and then I'll go back later with clear paints for things like the taillights and the marker lights. Now I'm going to accent the seams of the truck. As this is a lighter color, I'm going to use a brown panel liner here, as the black is too bold and it stands out a little too much. It's kind of unrealistic. They also make a gray, which works fantastic for using light and white finishes. Well, there you have it. My Tom Daniel inspired Beer Wagon. It was a ton of fun, and it was kind of like walking in the great designer's footsteps. I hope you love it as much as I enjoyed making it for you. Okay, so the beer challenge is over now. And there it is, my TD-inspired Beer Wagon. This was so much fun for me, and be sure you check out the builds of those who participated in this with me. I'll be releasing a wrap-up video of the other builds as well. Remember, tune in tomorrow to check for the winners. I'll also post the names of the winners on my community page. If you are a winner, please contact me through email with your shipping address at captainpaul@cox.net. Okay, that's it for the night. Thank you all for joining me and helping me celebrate this milestone birthday. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up, click subscribe, and don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss one of my videos. Remember, creativity is contagious. Pass it on. Thank you, Tom Daniel, for passing on all of your creativity for us to enjoy. Until next time, this is Paul from Fat Guy Productions, saying be good.